10 right fit followers will out earn 10,000 random ones every single time. So here's what I want you to know. So many people right now are being affected by reach on LinkedIn. Their impressions are down and they're really worried. Their LinkedIn doesn't seem to be performing as well as it did. But actually, that doesn't matter because more reach won't help if your message lands with the wrong people. What's more important is that you have alignment because if you're visible, if you're showing up every day, once, twice, three times a day on LinkedIn, or once, twice, three times a week on LinkedIn, if you're visible but you're not aligned, it means you're putting in effort but without revenue, right? Because you won't get the return on your effort. I think a new metric of success to look at is your audience quality and not your audience size. So when you're looking at your LinkedIn analytics, instead of looking at your impressions, click into the impressions and look at who's actually looking at your content and is it the right people? That's way more important because if it's the wrong people or your messages is being opened or reviewed or the impressions are with the wrong people, then you have a quality problem, not a size problem. So what you can do is if you really focus in on connecting with the right people and sharing a message specifically for those people, you can probably post less and get a better revenue result, right? So it is very much about alignment. And what I see that's happening on LinkedIn quite a lot is that people are posting without this alignment. And this might piss some people off, but I'm going to say it anyway. Basically, what they're doing is they're performing. They're just performing on LinkedIn. That's it. They're not positioning. They're not positioning themselves as the guide, the leader, the expert, the mentor, the thing that your clients need you to be. You're performing, right? And LinkedIn is not a place where you need to be famous. You don't need to be famous. But if you're going to be famous, you might need to be famous to the right people, right? So it's not about, having 8 million followers. Even if you had 800 followers, but they're 800 right followers, that's going to outperform all of the time. Because here's why it's important. When you show up and you do your marketing, marketing is a battle of perception. It's a battle of around the perception piece that you offer as opposed to the products that you sell. So marketing is a battle of perception and not products. And that perception is what other people will say about you. And if you're talking to the thing that they need, well, then that's what helps you become a right fit. And what does right fit mean? It means that people want what you offer, that they can pay for what you're selling, and that they're actively looking for it or they're open to it. So if you think about this, if you have 10 aligned people on LinkedIn and those 10 aligned people resulted in 10 conversations, the average person will convert probably 30 to 40% of their sales. Good salespeople will convert 80% and above, but an average person usually converts 30 to 40%. So if you have 10 aligned people that result in 10 conversations, that's potentially 3 sales. And this is like the least amount possible, 3 potential sales, but potentially you could get 2 referrals. So those 2 referrals could result in more aligned or right fit people for you. So it's not about the number, it's actually about your positioning. It's about knowing who your people are, and then it's how you communicate your message and your story. Because if your brand story doesn't make the client the hero, well, then people are just going to tune out. And here's how, like, think of this from a numbers perspective. If you have an audience, I have 12,500 people in my audience. A lot of them are not right fit because they're people that I was connected with before I started my business. They're past colleagues from banking or past clients from banking. Maybe they own service business. Some of them might even be farmers. They don't need me for help with their brand strategy, their brand story, or growing their business, right? So if I have 12,500 of those people and there's a 0.1% buyer fit, well, then that's hardly anybody at all. Whereas if I have an audience of 500 people and there's a 20% buyer fit, I mean, who wins? The maths win every day of the week, right? So it's not about being seen by more, it's being seen by the right people. That's what's actually important. And, you know, to a certain extent, how can you make that happen? How can you make that possible every single time? It's very hard unless you pay for paid ads, because that's where your marketing is targeting a specific cohort in terms of demographic. And even on LinkedIn, whilst LinkedIn is the easiest platform to find your ideal client based on demographic, it's also the most difficult platform because so many people are reserved on LinkedIn and they hold back so much on LinkedIn. And because they do that, it makes it very difficult to identify, you know, what are they doing? Oh my gosh, I'm just getting about 10 messages all at the same time. Um, so it's very difficult because they're reserved to identify what their psychographics are. And ultimately, usually from a brand, particularly a personal brand perspective, it's people's psychographics that you're trying to connect with. It's the things that make them tick. It's the brain psychology behind what makes them buy and want to work with you. It's the problems that they experience, the emotions that they have. Those are the things that cause them to buy, and not because they're X or Y gender, X or Y age, work in X or Y industry. That's just a way to help narrow the gap and filter out who the people are in a specific cohort so you can identify them a bit more. So, in terms of niching, that's what I'm talking about. It's usually psychographics, it's identifying the problem or pain point they have, and not necessarily their demographics. So, here's a quick exercise for you to do live on this live today. I want you to think through, who are you actually attracting? Like, who are the people who are sending you connection requests on LinkedIn? Are they potentially your ideal clients? Are they the right fit people? And if you're not sure, like, look at the people. If you go through your comments on LinkedIn, look at your notifications. You can open a separate tab if you're looking at me on a desktop, and you'll still be able to hear me talking in the background. But you can look through your comments and your DMs. What percentage are ideal buyers? Or again, you can look at your analytics on your most recent post and look at what is their demographic. Do they look like they're the right fit people? And then think through as well, like, what kind of content are you actually posting? Are you posting content that positions you as a credible authority in your industry, as a thought leader? Or are you posting stuff that will try and make you popular? Fair question, right? And maybe I'm poking the bear here, but anyway, there you go. And then here's another question, and this might hit home for some of you watching too. Are your top posts helping you convert clients, or are they helping you just perform on the platform? Yeah, that's a toughie. And performing is great. Like, one of my Millionized clients, I've encouraged him to show up. He does a fantastic job on LinkedIn, and like actually goes and gives LinkedIn talks to companies. And one of the things I talked about, one of my observations from his content was it's all very factual. He shares a lot of things about events. He has an incredible podcast. He shares stuff about the podcast, but nowhere in that does he ever share his personal opinion. And sometimes, like, his other content is converting, but he actually needs to switch from conversion into performance for a little bit more visibility and reach so that he can grow and increase awareness. But if you're in conversion mode and you're trying to attract new clients, you need to focus on converting and not performing. And what the effect has been, and you know, he's been measuring the effects of the strategy that he's taken and run with, and it has absolutely, I mean, blown his impressions out of the water. He can't get over it. But the question I keep bringing him back to, I'm like, that's great. I won't say his name. That's great. But tell me, what's that doing for your bottom line? Because really, that's the important part. What's the impact on your bottom line? And he is seeing people sign up for his email list. He has gotten a couple of inquiries. So it's working. It's slow, but it's working, and it's absolutely helped him grow his LinkedIn newsletter and his email list as well. So it's great, it's working. But in that instance, the goal was the stuff that he's already doing was converting, but he needed to do a little bit of the performance stuff as well. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. And another question is, if your best post brought in 50 comments, 100 comments, 150 comments, how much of that turned into business? Because sometimes what we end up looking at is the vanity metrics. We end up looking at the impressions, we end up looking at the number of comments, but they don't matter a damn if they don't convert into business. So a really simple thing to do is to just ask yourself those questions and just identify, what are you actually doing? Are you performing or converting? Because you're not there to just perform. And I would say performing is a little bit, sometimes you have to perform to increase awareness and visibility, but you want to do it with the intention of attracting the right people. It's always about the right people, because at the end of the day, you're going to attract who you signal for. So it's being very intentional with that. So if you're trying to attract premium clients or the right fit clients, you need to be very intentional with your positioning. And what I mean by that is, essentially, it's the difference between a brand and a commodity is clarity. So if people think it's a nice to have, great. But if it's a need to have, you need to explain why. Why is that brand important? What is the difference that that brand can make? So, like, how will it result in an output for you? And premium clients don't buy vague shit, they buy really clear stuff. And to be clear, you must be known for one specific thing, right? And what does that one specific thing? And that's where memorability comes into play with your marketing, and talking about the same thing over and over again. And you're going to be so sick of hearing yourself talking about the same thing, but your clients won't be, because it might be the first time they've heard it, or it might be in the way that you said it this particular day that it finally landed. So it's more about you talking about the same thing on repeat, on repeat, on repeat, because marketing ultimately is a lesson in memorability. And the more you talk about the same thing, the more aligned your content is, the better it's going to perform. And those people who are lurking, who are curious, who are watching what you're doing all of the time, it's going to resonate when they're ready to buy. And then when they're ready to buy, they're going to buy from you, right? That's how it works. So one of the things that I've noticed as well is that you really have to simplify to scale, and you need to make your messaging more like a map rather than a maze. Get to the point. Don't a phrase that I heard when I'm working with a lady who does PR, and she says you have to get to the lead fast, and it's a journalism phrase. And basically, what it means is, oh no, how does she say it? Don't bury the lead. Anybody who's in PR, if you're watching, you can correct me on this. I think it's don't bury the lead. And basically, what that means is get to the point early on at the start. So that's why I started with, you only need 10 followers as opposed to 10,000 followers to make a shit ton of money on LinkedIn, right? So it's about having the right followers. So one of my favorite things to do this on LinkedIn, or how to build a better audience, is for you to create a category of one. And by that, what I mean is that you are the only person that has or does or is this thing, right? So that's your differentiator. When you become a category of one, people will start talking about you, and the right people will be interested in following you and connecting with you and commenting on your content and proactively reaching out to you to book calls or hopping into your DMs. But your copy must speak to the pain that they're experiencing and the potential of what it looks like when they alleviate that pain. And where you can, you need to get really good at writing what that looks like. So it's not content writing. People always say the stuff you create on LinkedIn is content writing. It's not. If you're doing it right, you're using LinkedIn as a funnel for your business. You're using LinkedIn as a funnel through a customer or buyer journey. And what you're doing is you're warming people up on LinkedIn so that they eventually become clients. And an example of this might be basically where, what am I trying to say? your copy is speaking to oh my God, I've completely lost my train of thought now. I think where I was going with this is it's like authority. What am I trying to say? Sorry. Bear with me. This is what happens when you're live and you blunder. I'm having a complete brain freeze here. I think where I was going with it is that your copy has to speak to the problem that your customer is experiencing and the success as well. And one without the other is no good. And I think when you do that, then what ends up happening is you do what I call credibility posts, right? So those posts are like their thought leadership posts. Sometimes it could be a post that is going to position you as somebody who's really credible and can help them with the problem that they have, versus writing a post with the intention of it going viral and not having any buyer intent. So if you look sometimes, like I love to look at memes. I'm always on Instagram and I could share 20 memes with my friends and my family in an hour some night, right? And they're the reels that are funny and, funny videos, like probably on TikTok, but I'm not on TikTok. But there is no value in those. I'm never going to buy from anyone from those. They're the things that go viral, but they don't result in anybody purchasing anything. Does that make sense? So viral should not be your goal. Those vanity metrics are not worth anything. And there are people with millions of followers who are making this much money, like literally zero, zero. So if you're going to post content, you need to do a blend of both. And that's what I was saying to my Million Eyes client. He was constantly posting those credibility building thought leadership type stuff, but it wasn't his thought leadership. It was the event stuff, or it was podcast guests' thought leadership. It wasn't his own. And so my encouragement to him was to look through his content and share things a little bit more personally, his own personal opinions and insights. So you need to show both. And you need to think through like what's going to attract your future clients. Like what type of content will make your future clients say, fuck yeah, where do I sign up? What's next? Tell me more. Show me the things. Let's go. Let's do this, right? It's where does that happen? So your messaging then, it's not just content. When you shift that thought from your messaging just being content, it becomes copywriting. And copywriting is the most underrated and most valuable asset on your LinkedIn. And what it does is it's salesmanship in print. That's actually the definition of what copywriting is when the concept first came to be. It's salesmanship in print. And when you do it really well on LinkedIn, it becomes a filter because it filters out the people who have no interest in buying or working with you. And what it does is it refines them so that you end up attracting the right people because your profile, your headline, and your content is what's going to get people to become your ideal followers. Rather, they're not going to become your ideal, they're your ideal clients who will become followers and connections. So when you're creating authority content versus audience content, authority content speaks to that specific buyer, your ideal client, the person whose psychographics you know and understand because you've worked with these people before. It's your niche, if you want to call it that. It's where you're talking about the problems that they have and you're sharing valuable solutions. That's what I'm talking about. And it feels a little bit more like a behind the class masterclass, a behind the scenes masterclass, rather than just educational stuff that you're sharing all the time. Does that make sense? Hopefully this feels like an authority piece of content. Whereas audience content is the type of stuff that chases engagement. It feels motivational, but it's probably shallow. It doesn't have anything actionable or anything that makes people have an aha moment. It doesn't do anything like that. It might, and then the result is it might build your ego, but it won't build your pipeline, right? So, oh, hard truths here today. So one of my favorite marketers, Seth Godin, is, what he always says is, well, is that the goal isn't to be liked by everyone, it's to matter deeply to a few. And really what you want to do is use filter. And this is a harsh filter, but it's 3E filter. Does it educate, elevate, or eliminate the wrong client? That's what you want to do. You want to put people through your 3E filter: educate, elevate, or eliminate. Because if you stop chasing applause, the result will be that you're actually focusing on action, and you're going to trigger more of that action. Make sense? I hope it does. Okay, I'm nearly done. So excuse me. So a couple of things that I would say just to finish up is that LinkedIn, it's not just about creating content, it's actually about conversations. And if you're really intentional and strategic with how you show up on LinkedIn, what you'll end up doing is creating sales conversations through your content. And I think another way to do this as well is to really focus in on connecting with those ideal clients and commenting on their content, and not just like great post, super insightful, that kind of shit. I'm talking about like an actual insightful comment on their post. And then even following up with the DM and saying, oh my gosh, I love that. Or if they comment on one of your posts, that you follow up with them with the DM and offer them a resource. So here's a free thing. Take my free thing. You're not even selling to them. And oh my gosh, like thinking of how that relationship becomes nurtured, because that person is like, oh my God, they're not even asking for anything and they're giving me this free thing. Amazing. Like imagine what they'd be like if I worked with them. This happens regularly. So use strategic commenting to show up in your buyer's feed without posting. So if you don't want to post every day, comment regularly and make space for referral clients, those who'll never buy but always recommend. And even when you connect with the right people, some of the right people will never be buyers, but they will be referrals. And when you communicate clearly what you do, they can become clients. And this has happened to me as well. I've had people who I've maybe sent my usual message that I sent to all new connections on LinkedIn, which is, hey, great to connect. How's it going? That's my first message to everyone. It just like, it opens the doors and says, are you going to engage with me or not? I'm not going to be selling you anything. But I literally sent that message to a person who went on to refer somebody to me who's now an amazing client. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be like a long-term client who I have a wonderful relationship with, who's achieving great success. And it came from somebody I've never had an actual conversation with. But because I was talking about the same thing on repeat over and over, and they were an aligned client and they were listening and reading and watching the things that I was putting out there on LinkedIn, they referred somebody to me who is another complete aligned client, but that person was ready to buy and looking for a solution. So always be available for those types of people. So lastly to say is that connection builds trust faster than pitching. So sharing of value is really important. And remember that people decide to do things emotionally and justify logically. So if you're ready to make some changes on LinkedIn and leverage this strategy, what I want you to go away and think through is that to think through, how can you engage daily? How can you add value? How can you build connection capital with those right clients? And it's not about shouting louder. It's about scaling by speaking to the right room. And if you think of it, then, and another way to look at this is, do you go to networking events? I don't know, you can let me know in the comments. Usually I'll listen back to the comments later or read the comments later as opposed to right now, because there's a lag when they come through and I'm live. But I'd love to know, do you go to networking events? And if you were like me, I have been in networks and joined networks and I've left them because my ideal clients weren't there. So I wasn't in the right room. So you will scale more by speaking to the right room. So make sure you're showing up in the right room. And on LinkedIn, you have the advantage of potentially being able to build and create that room for yourself, not just in your audience, but also potentially in groups and communities, which I think they're not used enough on LinkedIn. So final takeaway is, you don't need a bigger audience, you need a better one. One that aligns, engages, and converts, one that sees your value before the sales call. So there you go. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Send me a DM or comment underneath the live if any of this has resonated with you, or if you've had any aha moments. I'd love to hear what they are. And until next week, same time, same place, I will see you then. And oh, do check out some of my episodes on the Master Your Business podcast. There is an episode out right now. Let me just give you the details of it that you might find really interesting that aligns with this as well. I should have thought of this before, but I didn't. It's just coming to my mind now. It's something that might be a valuable resource that doesn't require any commitment from you to do anything. But just a way to scale and grow your business, and to think of the number of clients you have and how you can leverage it. So yes, episode 117, it's 8 smart ways to scale your income without overwhelm. And really, when I was creating that, I was thinking through who are the clients I have in Million Eyes, what are some of the strategies that they've taken to use to grow their businesses towards 7 figures. One guy's even been millionized. But what are they doing one client is on track to make 300K in 3 days a week. Another lady is aiming for over 700K this year. There's so many incredible things going on. But the idea being that what are the strategies that they've taken to use to grow and scale without needing thousands and thousands or millions and millions of followers to be able to do this? And a lot of it comes back to positioning, actually, and that's how they've been able to do it. So if you're looking at other ways to grow and scale your business, go and check out the Master Your Business podcast, episode 117, 8 smart ways to scale your income without overwhelm. And I can't wait to hear what you think about that as well. So thank you for listening to me this far. I will be back next week, same time, 1 p.m. And I will have more juicy LinkedIn bits for you. See you then. Have a great weekend. Bye.